Let us continue. It is a difficult statement to work from, but it is inescapable. Racial tensions in America are reaching a critical mass. That phrase should start lots of conversations, and then include what history teaches us in finding a way to stop this disease. Part of that learning process would be to gather from what some have called one of the most consequential trials in civil rights history, and how sadly it may be a measure of our current times. Welcome to The Hardline, one of the more noted and prolific authors in America. Many a New York Times bestseller on the Kennedy family, biographies on notables such as Ronald Reagan, Johnny Carson, Arnold Schwarzenegger, recently penning a best-selling book on Palm Beach, Florida called Madness Under the Royal Palms. The new book is called The Lynching, the epic courtroom battle that brought down the Klan. Welcome Laurence Leamer to the show today. Laurence, I appreciate your time. Thanks so much for joining us. And I know that you do appreciate being called Larry, so I hope you don't mind if I call you by the familiar.
Please.
Now, your book is about a case in 1981 that ultimately resulted in the destruction of the Ku Klux Klan in America. Now, did you find it somewhat shocking that the Klan itself was even a factor as late as 1981?
Yeah, I mean, I thought about it in the 1920s when the legislature in Oregon was dominated by the Klan. There was the governor of Indiana was the Klansman, and even in the 40s, Senator Robert Byrd, as a young man, was a Klansman. But in 1981, that was a different matter.
Now, few really talked about the Klan until the former Grand Wizard David Duke made headlines supporting Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump said, of course, he never heard of David Duke. And there was a faction who believed that was a very clever strategy that Trump used because there is still Klan support, mostly in the southern part of America, in the South. Do you buy that, about that strategy issue, and also that the Klan is still something of an influence in the South today?
Well, you know, Donald Trump previously, a couple days earlier, had said point blank that he was opposed to the Klan. So it's curious the way that time on television he said it was his earpiece wasn't working, and that's why he couldn't hear. So I don't know. The Klan doesn't exist, but partially because of the Southern Poverty Law Center and their legal strategy, the big white supremacists and racist groups have been decimated. But we all know and seen this campaign that racism is there, and once it raises its head, it gets higher and higher, and that's why these next months we have to be so careful.
All right, now let's get to that issue of racism. You refer to the Klansmen in the Alabama case as a, quote, motley, disparate assembly of marginal men, unquote, rather than a militant militia of white supremacists. But aren't marginalized people just as full of racial hatred and capable of causing this level of death and destruction?
Yes, they are. But these two Klansmen that went out on a Friday evening in March 1981 to find a black man to lynch, it wasn't just that they were full of hate. The hatred was so much a part of them, the way they were brought up, that they didn't have to rev themselves up to do this. That's how they thought about black people. In the Klan in those days, they did what they called missionary work. That meant you'd go out and you'd find the black man and you'd beat him up. You'd beat him half to death, and then he was lying there on the ground. You'd say to him, if you say anything, if you go to the police, it's not going to do any good because the police are Klansmen and we're going to come back and kill you.
If you want to join us, 1-877-NEWSMAX, 1-877-NEWSMAX. We ask you please stay on point. Now, Larry, here's an example of what you could consider a marginalized individual, Dylann Roof. This is the man accused of killing 9 people in a South Carolina church. The Ku Klux Klan even publicly congratulated him for his crime. So does he fit that example then of a marginalized individual driven by Klan ideals, and also the kind of person that the Klan loves to get to, because there may not be many of them around, but this is the exact kind of individual they want to recruit and they want to make one of their own?
No, but worse than that, the Klan doesn't have to get to them anymore. The Klan doesn't exist as a major social force, but these kinds of marginal people can go on the internet. They can pick this stuff up, just the way ISIS does. They can pick it up and go out and do these things. And that's why it's so frightening for the authorities. How do you hunt these people? How do you know that somebody like this is going to do this? It's almost impossible to trace them beforehand.
Has the internet then made the Klan, what remains of them, and these type of individuals who believe in those kind of ideals, has it made them in many ways just as dangerous as ISIS? They are in our own backyard.
They are very dangerous, and that's why they pick up this. And what do? We don't want to limit American freedoms, but yet they spew this hatred and kind of ignorant people looking with desperate people pick this stuff up.
All right, now your book also talks about the Southern Law Poverty Center, and you mentioned that earlier, and the founder Morris Dees. What type of role are they playing in reshaping this modern South and trying to get away from this and even reshape some of the racial politics and the laws across the country?
Well, they've had a long pattern since the 70s of fighting these civil rights fights. I mean, early on, in the 70s, in Selma, Alabama, they filed a lawsuit so that in the black part of town, they would have to pave the roads and not have dirt, just have dirt on those roads. They filed lawsuits so that the state police in Alabama were integrated. And today they watch out for these things, and where they see these racist things, they come in and file their lawsuits. They're a controversial group, there's no question about it, and some people don't like some of the things they do.
I want to get a couple of phone calls in here very briefly. Please, people, please be brief. Please be to the point. We want to make sure we give everybody a chance. We're running out of time. Victor from Fayetteville, North Carolina, welcome to the Hardline. Victor, make your point, please.
Obama has got so far in debt right now, we'll never get out of debt.
Okay, Victor, if you would please stay on the point here right now. Do you have a comment about the issue that we're speaking about?
Yes, I do.
Okay, then please make it.
What I'm saying is plainly that Hillary's no better because she won't get us out of debt, she'll get us worse.
Okay, Victor, thank you very much for the phone call. We have to stay on point, if you will. Steve from Hamden, Ohio. Steve, welcome to the Hardline. Please make your point.
Ed, I do believe that racism still exists. I believe that it's worse now in the Obama administration with his regulations and him going after people. I do believe that it's worse in his tenure.
All right. Thank you very much for the phone call. Is it not fair to say, Larry, that as I indicated coming into this segment here, that racism, we still need to look at it as a disease in many instances? And the Klan, they may be few and far between, much less than they were in the 20s, much less than in the 1980s, but they exist. And it's that sort of ideal that has to continue to be fought. And that's what the book teaches us. The book goes back and teaches us about a time that was very prevalent in this country, much more than we thought.
Yes, indeed. And when President Obama said that slavery is America's original sin, he's right. And we still aren't over that. And we have to be very observant and careful.
All right. I have one last question for you here. The issue of the Confederate flag being removed from numerous places around the country is what most people see as a racist symbol in history. Why do you believe it took so long for that to happen? Because it would seem that we knew a lot about this flag and this issue for a long time.
Because a lot of us didn't see that. I as a Northerner going down there, I didn't realize how bad things were. And look, in 1955, when Martin Luther King led this bus boycott in Montgomery, do you know what that boycott was initially about? It wasn't to integrate those buses. It was so black people, when they got on the bus, and if a white person showed up, they wouldn't have to get up to give them their seat. That was the law on Mobile. So that's how tentative we were, even then, about changing America and integrating America.
It is an important book to read. It is a time in history when, quite frankly, we still need to educate ourselves about, because people still, and I've talked to many of them, they think the Klan no longer exists. Careful. The book again is called The Lynching, the epic courtroom battle that brought down the Klan. The author is Laurence Leamer. Larry, thanks so much for joining us. We do appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
All right, it's my pleasure. By the way, folks, we value your phone calls here. We just want to make sure, though, we're always a little short on time. We have guests here. We want to make sure that you are short, to the point, get it in, talk about it. We'll make sure that you get your chance to talk about the only thing that you need to talk about, and the only station that gives you the chance to do that, all right? Rock on, true believers. Thanks for joining us. Good night and good luck. We'll see you tomorrow on The Hardline.